fully committed to helping you build a legacy of wealth and financial freedom through home ownership. I'm Chichi Okoma, California real estate broker and host of the real estate education series, Real Talk About Real Estate by C2O Realty. Podcast episodes, videos, newsletters, and more that will inform, educate, and inspire as you navigate the real estate superhighway and build tremendous wealth along the way. Now is always the right time to start investing in your financial future. So let's talk, real talk. This is Real Talk About Real Estate with your host and community realtor, Chichi Okoma. Greetings, wealth and legacy builders. Thank you for joining us and welcome to Real Talk About Real Estate. Today's episode is entitled The Home Buying Mindset. Yes, because for many people, the process of buying a home, I believe, requires a very specific type of mindset. And my guest today embodies that very mindset. Her name is Sonia Russell. And I'm really excited to share her story, her home buying journey and process. Let me tell you a little bit about her first. In 1999, Sonia helped to produce the Palm 5 launch event, and her love affair with event production and technology was born. In 2002, she launched World Meetings by Sonia to create, produce, and execute world-class tech-focused events and projects. For nearly 20 years, Sonia has brought creativity, order, efficiency, and care to each and every event. She enjoys the production journey as much as the final result, and it shows. And ladies and gentlemen, it showed. It showed so much in her home buying process. And I'll add one more attribute to your bio and resume, and that is fearlessness. And that is really why I wanted to bring you onto the show to share with the audience really what your process was to step out and be ready to buy a home, because you embodied such a level of fearlessness that even I didn't have when I bought my first home, and particularly given the market today. So I wanted to share your story and maybe support others who are in the same place and knowing that they too can reach their dreams of owning a home regardless of the circumstances. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so let's just jump in and start with one. What was your biggest fear in home buying?
My biggest fear in buying a house was owning a house.
The reality of
now
what
yours. That means. But I have to say, though, that it wasn't fearless. I don't think there was fearlessness at all. I was terrified most of the time.
Don't believe
I'm
it.
just really solidly faithful, right? Like, I really trust. When I decided it was July 2015, that I decided, okay, I'm going to buy a house. I wrote it down, what I would love. I was taking a prosperity class at the time, and just deciding in that moment, I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to do whatever it takes to make this happen was sort of my putting a stake in the ground in my faith. Like, I can do this. And I think it'll take about 2 years, and let's see what happens. So I had decided that I was going to, when I turned 45, I was going to celebrate my 45th birthday in my house. And it wasn't right when I turned 45. It was about 5 months later, but it was still within that 2 years.
Yes. Yeah. And I remember when we first met, that was your goal. You talked to me about that, and you were very clear. And you jumped into the market about a year ago, almost a year to the day.
I moved into my house a year ago last week.
A year ago last week.
Yes.
So it was not much longer, because I believe our process took under 6 months.
We started looking together in earnest probably in June of last year. Because that's when I felt like I was
solidly ready.
Okay, I think I'm ready to jump in there.
Yes. And you moved into your home in
October 10th, 2017.
So not even 6 months.
Right.
in a time when many people are actually struggling to stay in their homes, where many people are struggling to be able to stay in the neighborhoods where they work. You, a single mom, correct?
Correct.
Supporting 2 households at the time, yours and your mother's home.
Yes.
And let me add, are you also self-employed as in 2002, running your own business?
Yes.
And you live in one of the most expensive cities in the nation. And you were very clear that you were going to buy a home. You were not going to pay an outrageous amount for it.
That is correct.
And you were going to live in your neighborhood.
That is correct.
And all of those things happened.
Yes. Amazing. I'm super grateful. And it was amazing. And yes, all of those things. I was not going to live in the hood. I was not going to pay whatever ridiculous price houses are going for.
Right.
And it mattered. It mattered for me to be able to let my kid play outside. That's what I wanted, to be okay with my kid playing outside.
So what was the most challenging part of the entire process? Once we started actively looking, you'd been pre-approved, you knew what your numbers were. What was the most challenging?
Honestly, the whole thing was about the biggest challenge was just staying faithful that I could. Right? We looked at some houses. You remember there were some times we didn't even get out of the car. You took me to a neighborhood, and we're like, I was like, I'm not. I'm just not. I'm just not going to live in this neighborhood.
Sure.
And so I think just really holding on to that focus. Even when, the people around me were like, well, maybe you should just go ahead and get a condo, or maybe you should just, and I just stopped talking to those people. I needed it to be really clear. I needed to continue to focus on what I thought was possible.
There were definitely naysayers. I have to say myself, there were times when I thought.
There were times where you told me, you're not really.
You might be overreaching. Yes. And then you were clear. You said, I'm good. Let me go through my process. And that is really what I wanted to talk about and really wanted to share in letting people see it's real, right? The home buying process, it is absolutely an experience, a journey, a process, right? Yes. It is not a wake up and decide like you're going to buy a car. Because you can get up today and have a car by the end of the day and be perfectly okay.
Yes, absolutely.
You can't wake up today and for most people there may be a way, but in our case what we know that's not a reality. So one, you had to take yourself through a journey. One, you had to be prepared to buy, which is years of building credit, building an employment history, building that credit profile. Right. Then step 2, you have to be willing to take your profile to a lender and ask them how much are they willing to give you. What was that about?
Yeah, that was a lot. I mean, that was for me being self-employed. Right before my daughter was born, I declared bankruptcy. Being self-employed is a lot of work. And I, just putting in the time and efforts into it, and decided that was a good, clean slate way to start over. And I got one of those little credit cards, a secured credit card, and I just worked at paying it off and was diligent and just sort of really all the things I thought I probably could have learned in my 20s and I didn't.
Right.
About how to properly utilize credit, I learned later. And so now I just made sure that I was diligent about that process. And then going to the lenders was not easy. Like there's a lot of whatever the mindset is about, how we associate our worth on the planet with the amount of money we have in the bank. And so there was a lot of sort of battling that demon of what I felt like I was sort of would be capable of doing.
Can we dig a little deep? Because I think that I hear that a lot. I know a lot of buyers, prospective buyers, people who are ready to buy. And they are going to open houses. They've got the Zillow on their phone. They drive around and they have great credit. They have the job. And I say, what's stopping you? And it really is about the idea of having someone evaluate their credit worthiness. It feels like a reflection of their personal worthiness. And that is what I saw in you that was different, was you stepped forth with such a confidence and courage of, no, I'm worthy.
Yes.
And I'm ready. Yes. And regardless of what the facts might look like.
Right. I'm willing to be the exception.
I'm willing to be the exception.
I'm willing to be the exception to whatever that rule is. However y'all usually evaluate that, I'm willing to be the exception to that.
I love it.
Yes, absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah, but it did take that time of really, there were plenty of times where when we first started in the process, because I said I was ready.
Right.
And then you showed up with a contract and I was like, oh, am I ready? And so that was, that made me say, okay, we're in here. We're in, both feet in, let's go.
That's right.
But I think even you had sent me information about a lender and it still took me a while to sort of get up the courage to submit what was required.
Yes.
And I had decided at that point, once I did it once, whoever else I submitted it to was going to be fine.
Right.
Like I just had to get up the courage enough to do it once.
It's the first hurdle. And it is intimidating because the lenders send you, a page or two of documents, this and this. And it feels almost like some sort of a personal physical examination.
It is. There's a lot of the energy. I'm grown. I don't have to give you all of that.
You're not the boss of me.
All of it. And what are they going to say about that? Or I didn't pay that bill on time. Right. Are they going to notice that I didn't pay that bill on time? Are they going to notice that time that I was overdrawn? Are they going to notice that? Right. And so just all of that and being like, they can't eat me. The worst they can do is say no to me. Like let's just put it out there and see what happens.
Right. And for everyone that says no, someone else is there to say
I will go somewhere else and be the exception there.
Exception, yes. And you made it through that process. Got pre-approved. And as I say, home buying is not for the faint of heart.
It's not. So many
because
things.
One, you had to do all of the work to be ready.
Yes.
Then you had to take that leap to say, okay, I'm ready. Would you loan me $500,000,
right.
$1 million, somewhere in that range?
Yes.
And then you have to now go and find the house.
Right. So that actually fits within those parameters.
Right.
Right. And there was a lot of homework. Like it became, looking for a house literally became part of my spiritual practice. Mm-hmm. So in the morning when I would get up and I would pray and meditate and read, I would look at houses. Like that would be the next thing I did, with just a focus on getting what I wanted, right? And also whittling it down to getting what I needed. Like I had a whole lot of big ideas about how big my backyard needed to be and all these other things. And then I can barely keep up with the tiny little backyard I have right now. I'm just being honest about that. So really just being really clear and at all times keeping what my values are at the top of the list. Okay, what are my values? What do I really need out of this house?
Yeah.
And what's going to be important to me?
Yeah.
Because I also don't want a mortgage that I'm going to means I have to, work my fingers to the bone to maintain.
Right.
So all of those things had to be, and it had to be someplace that was comfortable for my daughter and for my mother.
Right.
And so all of the things of just considering those things really made me focused. And so it always became I had a very short list of locations I'm willing to live, an amount I'm willing to pay, and a configuration of a home that was going to work for us.
That's right. And I love you had your family involved. I mean, in every home, your daughter would walk in and she was clear whether this was a yes or a no.
Yes. I made sure if I went to go look at a house, if I had any inkling that I thought it might work, I would bring my mom and my daughter to come look at it as well.
And they were quite the team. We looked at a lot of houses.
We looked at so very many houses. Yeah. So very many houses. It was like, I feel like I saw you more than I saw most of my friends during that time because it was multiple times a week, us getting together and going to look at houses.
It is a journey. It is not for the faint of heart. And you move through it with such amazing grace and such incredible ease. And when we come back, I want to talk or give you an opportunity to tell a little bit about what you might have done differently or what you will do differently when you're ready to buy that second home. Right. We'll be back. This is Real Talk about real estate. For show notes and additional information on any of the topics discussed, visit my website at c2orealty.com. Did you know buying real estate is not only the best way, the quickest way, and the safest way, but truly the only way to become wealthy? Real estate is the closest thing to the proverbial pot of gold. Want to know more? Hi, I'm Chichi Okoma, California real estate broker and host of Real Talk About Real Estate. Visit my website at c2orealty.com for access to real estate podcast episodes, videos, and pages filled with engaging topics, tips and best practices, and other valuable resources to help you build a legacy of wealth and financial freedom. I believe that buying and selling a home is more than just a transaction, and you are more than just a client. Contact me today to discuss your specific real estate needs. This is Real Talk About Real Estate by C2O Realty. This is Real Talk About Real Estate, and I'm Chichi Okoma, your host. For most people, buying a home is the largest and most personal transaction they will ever initiate. And it is definitely not for the faint of heart. And our guest today, Sonia Russell, has moved through that process with such amazing grace, and I brought her here to share that story. Sonia has managed the keynote stage for O'Reilly Media's flagship event, including Velocity, Fluent, and JupiterCon. She helped grow a 200-person user conference into a 1,500-person premier tech event known as DevOps Enterprise Summit, including producing the inaugural London event. She manages more than 300 volunteers for the annual Maker Faire weekend. She is an event coordinator, stage manager extraordinaire, and a home buying extraordinaire, which is why I wanted to share her story. If you listened in on the first half, you heard a lot about what it took for Sonia just to be prepared mentally, to take the leap, to start the process of home buying, and then the actual process and what was involved. And what I want to do now is ask you, what would you do differently? Or I should say, when you're ready to buy home number 2, because we are definitely about building wealth and legacy. So if we own one home, the next step is to buy a second one. When you're ready, what might you do differently? Or what maybe you've already started doing some things differently?
That's a super good question that I don't actually have an answer to.
Okay.
I can't. The whole process, I feel like I'm very much a believer that things unfold in the way they needed to unfold. And so I learned a lot of lessons about myself. I learned a lot of lessons about how the market works, about working with people. I learned a lot about just houses, right? I lived in a house once, but it was somebody else's house, So just like the pieces of what it means to actually own a house. So I don't know that I would do anything differently. All of it was amazing and exhausting and like having another part-time job.
Yes.
The entire process was like having another job. And so I guess maybe I would have prepared for that a little bit more. Like, I don't think I realized the level of time and the amount of time that I was going to have to put into really finding what I wanted and how long.
I love that you brought that up, because a lot of people come to me and the first question, how long is this going to take? And I can almost tell by the partial breath that they came out when they asked the question that they are really looking at their watch going, so how long is it going to take you to get me this house?
Right.
and I have to bring to them, one, I'm not getting you a house. I'm just facilitating this process.
Right.
But really, this is a full-time job. And one of the things that you were clear about was, I need to be in my house at this date, right? I need to be moved out and living in. And I think that's really important for people. The home buying process, you can't really be on the ish side.
Right. So I did feel like I had to be all the way in. Like we were moving, and that is the plan, and just being really clear about that. I had set that goal to be March of 2017. And I feel like the offer was accepted in August.
Correct.
So there was still some time, right, of me sort of, but still being diligent and focused.
Yeah.
And really clear that that's what I wanted to do. But the time was really like I said, every day became part of my spiritual practice, and talking to you every day. What are we doing today? How are we taking over the world today, Gigi?
Yes.
Like, just so.
We looked at, I mean, you and I alone looked at at least a dozen homes.
At least a dozen homes.
Within the first 4 to 6 weeks.
Yes, at least. And then I looked at a bunch of homes before. And the home I actually live in was a home I looked at while you were out of town.
I was out of town, as a matter of fact. I had never seen the home when
indeed.
you called to say, this is the one, write the offer now. And I said, oh, okay. And I looked
asking me, what house is this?
You were so clear
right.
that this, and when you found it, and I will be honest, when I looked at the house, the price, and I said, and you told me your offer, I asked you again, you want to offer what? And I thought, all right, long shot.
Right.
But I'm going to write this offer. So even I, in that moment, was not holding the level of faith and clarity that you were. So much so that when the accepted offer came to me, it took a minute for me to realize what was it. I won't lie.
Right.
It came as a text, and I saw part of it, and I thought, that looks slightly different from the usual thank you, but no, your offer was not accepted. Right. And I said, well, let me actually read this. And lo and behold, and I called. We were preparing. I was on my way.
You were on your way to pick me up, to take me to another house.
Look at another house.
And we still went and looked at that house because I really needed that moment of disbelief that the offer had been accepted, I think, so quickly.
You did.
Because I had heard so many stories about the amount of time it was going to take and the amount of offers they had put in. And so while I hadn't completely bought into it, I had bought into the idea of being patient, that it was going to happen. But this was actually only the third house.
The third house, as we'd only put in 2 offers before.
Right. And I remember after the second one, just with that same idea, remembering after the second house, me telling you, I don't want to know how much I lose the bid by.
That's right.
Because the first one, I feel like I lost by like $100,000 or something ridiculous. There was no way I could have done anything about
nothing.
it. And so I realized that it didn't help. It didn't help my mindset. It didn't help me sort of stay fortified that I can do it. It just made me go, my God,
why bother?
So I wanted to make sure that I wasn't getting into that. And so I remember saying, And even when you had your little moment of, are you sure? I'm like, I don't need you to ask me if I'm sure. I need you to do the thing you're supposed to do.
Yeah. And that is really important, I know, because you can look at the history and see homes listed in the Bay Area are being purchased for 20, 30, 40% above list price. And so for many people, it feels impossible. It's like, even if I have the money and I'm ready to buy the idea, I'm now competing and people are they're bidding up these homes. It's never going to happen.
Right.
You went in, you found a home. You did not overbid. I believe you came in.
I think I only offered maybe
slightly above. Was it 10,000 above?
Maybe 15,000 above asking. Yeah. Maybe.
Yes.
Maybe.
It was a low ball offer. That's why I thought, really? Okay, we'll just and then and then there it was. And so you mentioned, and now you own this home.
I do. It's amazing.
What is home ownership like? So you're a year in. What would you do differently?
I think now that we've settled in. I now have to have that same sort of mentality of what I'm going to do to maintain the house. Yes. Hell, it already needs a roof, just for the record. It needed it when I went in. I went in knowing that. But, just sort of the pieces, I feel like I need to take that same sort of faithfulness and the same clarity that I can sort of maintain my mortgage and maintain the house with just that same sort of grace, that same sort of ease.
Yeah. So important. And I'm glad you brought it up. We'll actually be offering more episodes specifically around maintaining the home because I see too often many of our elders, our parents, our grandparents, they purchase these homes when they're young or they inherit them. It's their retirement. But by the time they retire, these homes are in such poor condition. They haven't been maintained that they're not able to sell them and reap the benefits of someone bidding $100,000 above list price. So that is something that is really dear to me, and that, I absolutely want to support with folks that I put into homes. I want to see you stay in those homes. I want to see you build the next one. So I'm very glad to hear that that's where your mindset is now on how we maintain that home. What advice do you have or can you offer to anyone who may be in similar situations, whether they're a single mom, a single person, a young couple, anyone who's ready, who knows financially, I've got a pretty good profile. They've probably done some soft mortgage online pre-approvals and gotten some soft numbers. What advice would you give them to help them take that next step, to reach out, to call me, to say, I'm ready to buy my first home and I'm committed to the process no matter what it takes?
For me, it was really about just deciding that I was just really jumping in, right? Like I realized that I couldn't just be kind of ready.
Double Dutch.
Right. I was kind of ready. I was kind of ready until it was time to call you, but then I had to be all the way ready. And so there's the piece of just kind of getting all sort of the little ducks in a row so that you can find somebody then. I think that with technology, we feel like we could do it all ourselves. Like, I'll find it, I'll figure it out, and I'll get it all ready. I was really clear that I was like, I want to talk to a realtor. I want to talk to a lender. I want to know the people who do the thing. I don't want to have to figure out how to do it myself. I want to find the people that know how to do it, and who have similar values. I think it's important that we, that we vote our values, that we spend our values, that we, consider and are always clear in our values. And so finding people who are sort of like-minded and in positions that can support you, because that's what their sort of zone of genius is, then be connected to those people and be willing to take those people's expertise and use it as much as possible, but then also know what's yours. Because I was really clear. All I need to know is that it's possible. That's my whole, I need to know that it's possible, and I need to be clear, laser focused on what I want. Everything else, somebody will tell me. Everything else, somebody will tell me how it's supposed to work.
That's right.
I asked a lot of questions.
Yes.
I'm not afraid to ask a lot of questions, and so that was my thing. Ask questions, and be really, really clear on what I want, and be really, really clear that it's possible.
Beautiful. And it is very possible. And I do love that you said to work with professionals that share your values. I think that is so important. It was great for me to work with someone who came with such a strong foundation that just happened to also be mine. So it was a really nice experience. We shared a lot of the same language, so we were able to really move through the process well. And I'm just grateful. I'm really grateful for the experience that you had, such that it can be an inspiration for those who are ready to take that leap and hopefully will jump. As you said.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's I love it. I love my house. The process was amazing. However, terrifying. And I'm really grateful.
Wonderful. That's For show notes and additional information on any of the topics discussed, visit my website at c2orealty.com. Thank you so much, Sonia, for joining us. And before you go, I would like to share a gift with you. And it is the My First Home Savings Jar. And it already has the very first dollar towards your first home. Now, of course, for you already have your first home. So this you can give to your daughter, or cross out first and write second. And you are now $1 closer to that next new home.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
This is Real Talk About Real Estate. Billionaire John Paulson says, if you don't own a home, buy one. If you own a home, buy another one. If you own two homes, buy a third and lend your relatives money to buy a home. I couldn't have said it better myself. Home ownership is the safest, fastest, and most lucrative investment the average American could ever make. What are you waiting for? Now is always the right time to start building your legacy of wealth and financial freedom. And if you're committed to buying or selling real estate in the Bay Area or beyond, I'm committed to helping you achieve that goal with the highest level of excellence, care, and compassion. I'm Chichi Okoma, California real estate broker and host of the real estate education series, Real Talk About Real Estate, sponsored by C2O Realty. For show notes and additional information on any of the topics discussed, visit my website at c2orealty.com. Click on the Real Talk About Real Estate link and select podcasts and videos. You can also email me at chichio@kw.com and or call or text to 510-556-1990. Thanks so much for joining us. Until next time, live wealthy.